I am absolutely floored at the notion that you do not drink caffeine.
Yeah.
How do you function?
I
Seriously,
don't know,
as
man.
a dad who works early mornings, like I could not live without coffee. I thought about getting rid of it out of my system, and then I realized life. No,
No, I don't know. I just never really have. But I guess like long ago, I didn't like the taste and never really
it's
went
not
back to
about
it.
the
I
taste.
know it's the cat. I mean, I used to drink caffeine all the time, but I don't know.
I think I am coherent enough to do this now. So if you, good sir, are good, I am too. Then
All right, let's do it.
let's do it. We welcome you all in by saying, welcome on in, folks, to the Snap Back podcast, where you snap and we snap back. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. As always, I am joined by DefaultDan. Welcome in. We have a lot to talk about, good sir, because OTAs happened. Iron Lad's now here. We got lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. Doing good. You know, it's early, but we're getting there. We're doing good.
The content does not sleep. If there's anything
I
we've
know.
learned with Marvel Snap, the content does not sleep, which is why we need coffee and why I love it so much. And we will get you on that train. So let's just dive into it. You know, today the topics of the day, you know, we're going to talk about Iron Lad. We're going to talk about the OTAs. We're going to talk about the Snap.fan Open, which is happening at the time of this release, happening tomorrow. And then, of course, it's Friday, so it is my turn for my deck of the week. So let's kick it all off with the OTAs, because OTAs dropped a little bit later this week. You noticed that too, right? It was a little later for some reason. But
Yeah. So again, little backstory on that. These are still being manually done. So again, over in the creator area, sometimes we get a little heads up that they were delayed. This time, not so much until after the fact. Everybody was asking over and over and over, where they at. So they do plan to
Yeah.
eventually get these on a schedule to release. But as of now, because they're manual, they were kind of saying that they don't really want to give out the notes yet until they know when it's coming, because they don't want to send out the patch notes to let everybody know what's going on. And then, you know, it comes the following morning, you know, worst case kind of scenario. So
right.
they did drop a little late, which is also why we're having to record this morning rather than yesterday afternoon. You know,
Again, the
family,
content
all
does
of
not
that stuff.
sleep. Content never sleeps, my good sir. We
Yep.
truck on through. But yeah, so
Absolutely.
finally it was a little later than normal, and that it's kind of like oh my god, what the hell is the scientist's name with the dog? Schroeder, Schrodinger, I don't Pavlov, whatever. I don't know why I was thinking
Yeah,
Schrodinger.
Schrodinger
for
is the
weird,
cat.
sorry,
It's the
wrong
cat.
damn animal,
Cat in the
whatever.
box.
All right. Again, coffee. You know, I'm sitting here with my DuckTales mug, just going like, you are way too full, good sir. We are going to be diving in and waking up as we think of all the animals and the scientists, talking about the crazy creatures that just got adjusted. OTAs dropped, and some of them were really forecastable. Some of
Yep.
them, I don't know if they necessarily were on the top of the radar, but clearly there's an agenda in place. At least it's what it looks like to me. So if you haven't seen, you can go to marvelsnap.com or open up in-game, take a look on through, go to the news details for the May 11th balance updates, and we can see the full notation about Drax, where this is the second rework now to Drax. They have this very clear agenda that they need to make Drax a better card. And I get it right now, because they've changed him. First, originally, he was a 4/4 that if your opponent played a card that here this turn, he got +4 power. So he doubled his power.
Yeah.
Then he was moved on later to a 4/5. And their justification back then was, well, we need to give him some better base stats to increase his usability. Now
Yeah.
we enter
in
into...
case you can't predict that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
in case if you're
you can't
wrong, you
predict
still
it.
need it to be something, you know?
Yeah, and they did that, to a lot of the Guardians.
Yes.
At that time. So,
Yeah. Groot got it simultaneously, right?
yeah.
And now again, here we are in, of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy month, and Drax must be, and for all of the understandable reasons, is the least likely to be played. Because think about it, okay? Rocket Raccoon, he fits into actually some pretty good zoo decks and good bounce decks. I'm a fan of Rocket Raccoon. Selectively, but I'm a fan. Star-Lord has shot up in usability anywhere and everywhere because he's basically becoming a almost more reliable version of what Lizard used to be at a 2-5 stat
Yeah.
line. Groot you see pretty consistently now as a option in either. Oddly, I've seen it in Galactus decks, and I've also seen it more importantly in Silver Surfer decks because that's still a really good stat line, and you can get him up to 3-8 or higher with the Silver Surfer deck. Gamora's always good. I mean, Gamora's been good, since she dropped into the game. Put her into any kind of control deck that you play with Daredevil or Galactus, etc. And then there's Drax, who just kind of sits there like, what is Snap? Like he just doesn't get played. So they finally gave him a 4-6. Are you okay with how they did this?
I mean, so I know there's a lot of people out there also saying like, you're taking away his surprise, you're taking away that plus. I think this is the only way to get him played, in my opinion. So to your point, I think the other thing that shut up Star-Lord is one, you have to remember he is that Series 1 card that goes in a lot of decks when you're playing in Series 1 and 2, right? He's very, very good at that time. You also have him now with Nebula being a very good turn 2 play because you have Nebula on 1, him on 2. So he's definitely getting a lot more play than he was a while back. Because I remember before his changes, everybody was like, why is Star-Lord so bad? Why would you ever play him? But yeah, I think with Drax, the problem is he's a 4-drop. There's so many good 4-drops. And him being at a 4-5, you have even things like Rock Slide are generally just better than him because we'll talk about that in a minute, but was a 4-6 and disruptive by adding rocks. I mean, and that's kind of your lowest level of a 4-drop, right? And you've got things like White Queen, and that gives you information on their hand and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think this is the only way to make them get played. But even with this, I'm not sure if he's going to be the card you want to play because you still have to predict that lane that they're playing in order to get that 4-8 on them. Now, again, 4-8 has always looked good on Drax. It's just with any of these Guardians, it's very difficult to predict where that card's going to go. So, if you're all in on Nebula, maybe he's a decent card to add now in your 4 slot, just because you're going to assume they're playing in a Nebula. But I don't know. I've found a lot of games where they're either going to do that or they're just going to give up that lane. And they're going to be like, I'm not fighting over that Nebula. Yours can go up. No worries. I'll beat you on these 2 lanes. So I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts in general? Do you think this makes you want to play Drax a little bit more or not really?
Nah. I mean, I think that sound should explain it though. Like the question when it comes to wanting to play Drax, we know Nebula is built for that. Nebula is supposed to be a card that incentivizes, hey, come play over here, which synergizes with the Guardians to, oh, I caught you playing here. Haha, I'm more powerful now. Like to help balance out what Nebula does. The thing is, at this stat line and this adjustment, all Drax is doing is just canceling out the Nebula growth. It's not enough of an incentive if you look at all of the others. At least, with Groot, with the 3-4, you have that other play that could get him to grow later in a Silver Surfer deck, which is what you're using him in more often than not. But with Drax, there's no other buff potential.
I guess the only upside would be in a Zabu deck. I mean, if you're like all in on Zabu, again, there's better choices. You got Darkhawk and things like that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
I guess if you're all in,
if you look at all of your other stats, though, like I have it up on the screen on the YouTube side of things, right? You look at everything else at the 4-6 or better stat line for what you could play into there. I think one of the reasons that they will not adjust Drax further and his stats will probably still be low is because of Warpath, where it's a 4-5 and leave a lane open, which you can really do in a Nebula deck. You're trying to lock down one lane, get it early, so you might as well commit everything heavily to a second lane, and then there you go. That's it. And that's a 4-9 stat line. Namor, put him by himself. He's a 4-11 stat line. White Queen, at least gives you information, and you don't have to have it be dependent on something else happening on the battlefield. Crossbones is still a better option than Drax, in my opinion, because more often than not, by turn 4, you typically already have a lead in the Nebula lane if you got Nebula down on 1. So they're just trying to keep up at that point. And I don't know if
Yeah.
it's just me. I feel like with the Nebula lanes, if I get Nebula on one, at least 75% of the time that lane is mine.
Yeah. I would
It's a
agree. And if
really
not,
easy lock card.
yeah, and if not, then they're fully committing to that lane and you literally have the other lane. So I would
Exactly.
agree with you on that. Like you're going to have a
Namor,
place
like,
to play
or Orko.
your crossbones if you were to do that. Now,
Yeah.
you know, it definitely is one of those things that you're mentioning all of these cards right at 4. And I would agree that they also decided to hit 2 other 4s in order
Yes.
to make Drax look a little more appealing, because you got Rock Slide being brought down to a 4/5. And, honestly, I can see why.
This is the
People
beginning.
people are saying, we're touching cards again that are not the card this the problem, aka the Dino and or really the Darkhawk. We're touching the
Mhm.
cards around them. So, what are your thoughts on Rock
Mhm.
Slide? And are they making another mistake of killing a card for another card's sin?
I mean, we all know it. We all know it. Rock Slide did nothing wrong. Rock Slide, it's a great card. Even prior to Darkhawk, he was a pretty good card. He got
No.
amped as hell because of the existence of Darkhawk.
Yeah.
And now, think of the schedule. They're touching the cards around it. When series drops happens, Darkhawk's availability continues to change. We have more series drops coming on down. Better decks are about to become more readily available again. They're
Mhm.
touching the cards around it. So
Yeah.
it kind of opens the door, though, of with the Darkhawk deck being so damn strong. I went through it on stream yesterday. I was clicking through Twitter. We went through Twitter, which is always
No.
a dangerous thing to begin with, as we've learned this week. And we've just decided to look at all of the people's OTA wants. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, not chat, viewers, listeners. I apologize if I say this is wrong, but I think it was D Money who put out the suggestion of giving Darkhawk the Sandman treatment and making him a 5/3.
I could
And
see that.
that was in my opinion, probably one of the best things you could do to Darkhawk for balance because it still keeps him relevant. It doesn't hurt Rockslide, who already has been, chipped off the block a bit.
Yeah.
And the deck is still a good deck, but now it's not a turn 6 Darkhawk plus Mystique or
Yeah.
Darkhawk plus Rockslide.
Yeah.
And that's the strength in that deck, so much so that it is that beefed up. Like it is a crazy crazy strong deck to the
Yeah.
point where now they're touching Rockslide. And I don't know what else you touch in that deck though, outside of Rockslide and Darkhawk. So I think that
Well,
they're just trying to dance around it. The
and
problem.
I think that the problem is like when you look at Darkhawk, like outside of doing what you're saying and what D Money kind of suggested, like it isn't like you can say, oh, instead it's +1. Like that just kills Darkhawk, right? Instead of +2.
Yeah, no.
There's
You
no
can't do that.
way, right? There's no way to be like, let me take power off of him because he's a 0, right? And when you get into the negative powers, I get that they did it with Mr. Negative, but like it's difficult to do that and make sense out of a card to say, well, he's going to start at a -2, and that at least takes away 1 rock, right? Like I like that the treatment of the 5/2 take him away from the double play on turn 6, take him
Mhm.
away from even the turn 3 play within there. So I think that that's a way you can do it. I mean, you're still going to have good plays on the deck, which is good, right? You can still play them on 5 and then turn around and do a Mystique plus Rock Slide if you've got Zabu out. But I think that that's going to be a lot less common. So it does tone down the deck a little bit.
Mhm.
And outside of that, I think the other way to touch this deck, because again, Dino being the other big finisher within there, he's been touched multiple times. And I think he's good where he is. I don't think he needs any more touches. I think they've kind of landed in a good spot for him. I think the
Yeah,
only other way is
I agree.
you print a new card. And I think if you print a new card that's like Um, all cards here. So right now you have Enchantress, which we'll also talk about in a minute. Enchantress, shuts down any cards in there after the fact. I think the only other card you could print that maybe, helps against like a deck like this would be something that just says when this card's here, right? Just basic text like we've seen Leech. When this card's here, take away all other ongoing effects, or take away all ongoing effects at this location, right? I think that that's kind of the only other card that maybe slows this deck down or does something to this deck. And again, hasn't been spoiled or anything, so I don't see it coming. But
I'm gonna go a complete opposite direction and try to look for because I like what D Money did when he talks about the 5/3 as a potential suggestion for Darkhawk, and it's not gonna lower Rock Slide's usability. And I don't know if the devs think that one power down is going to drop the use in the deck. It just won't. The one power that you see with Rock Slide is not the one power that's winning the lane at all. I think the Darkhawk adjustment needs to be a different kind of number rework where, you can't make it a one power for each card in your opponent's deck. You can't do that. Unless you completely structure how the card is done and you make him something like a 6/6 plus one power for every card in your opponent's deck. Because then the base stat line on a standard game is if there's no extra cards drawn or cards added, the base stat line on turn 6 is a 6/9. If you play Rock Slide, you've got it to a 6/11. You play Rock Slide and Core, you've got 6/12. And I think that puts it at a pretty competitive place where then you can look at, okay, am I maybe looking at a ramp? Am I looking at, Black Widow and making a full deck on that ramp up? Because we're going to have ongoing effects coming in with High Evolutionary that are going to make this deck potentially work. So something crazy like that could be the case for Darkhawk. I think it would be a real hell of a shakeup and almost too drastic. But I'll say confidently, the one power change to Rock Slide is going to do absolutely nothing to the deck. It's not going to change usability or anything. It's just like them kind of teasing to us, hey guys, we know.
Yeah. I think it's just solely they're making this change so that one, it makes Drax look a little better because now Drax is a 4/6 and Rock Slide is no longer a 4/6. It's a let's see. It's an OTA change. Remember, they can always change this again or change it back or do whatever they want. It's a let's see if this helps at all with that particular Darkhawk deck. But now, I mean, I get what you're saying with going for a 6, but I think if you do that, it kills them in general by making it a +1. I think if maybe it's still a +2 at a 6 drop, maybe, but if you have them on +1 at a 6 drop, I feel like there's better. I'd rather play Magneto over that. And Magneto also has like really bad downsides in some matches. So
exactly. Yeah. 6/12 is always where you're gunning for anyway. So something along those lines could happen to Dracula. To Darkhawk in
Darkhawk. Yeah.
They're right next to each other in power. Which, by the way, I'm going to go on a sidebar here because it needs to be acknowledged. And I have it currently in my roster to take a look at it. It's not my deck of the week. But speaking of Dracula, have you heard from the Snapcast? It was Loopy Fist who was talking about the discovery with Dracula and Null. This is awesome.
So the ongoing, assuming that it buffs Null or something?
You can play Dracula down, and Dracula can take Null, and Null's ability, because it updates the numbers in hand, Dracula will take on that number.
Okay.
So you could play a destroy Dracula deck. I have it. I'll put it up in my here on YouTube. It's Deathcula is what he runs, and I saw he has a YouTube video out on it. So shout out to you, Loopy Fist. I did not know that because you think obviously Null's an ongoing deck, ongoing card, but because it updates in hand, now it's got me thinking.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What about something like even Morbius having that in your hand? If you have a crazy MODOK play and you happen to pull it, will it pull that too on turn 6? Like it got me going a million different ways thinking about it because it updates in hand. So I'm going to be testing this out over the weekend personally, and it's a really interesting synergy idea. really,
Yeah,
really interesting. And
absolutely.
I'm kind of excited to try this one out because whether Dracula takes on a crazy powered up Deadpool or Null or Death, even if you don't get Death out, like
Yeah.
now with the buff to Venom that came on down, bringing him up to a 3/3, it really incentivizes it.
You
So
skipped one. You skipped one, but
I'll
we can
come
go to
back
Venom
to
now.
her. We'll come back to her. It's called a segue, okay? I saw an
I got
opportunity and I took it, all right? So
you.
once again, kudos and shout out to Loopy Fist. Now, Venom here at a
Yeah,
3/3 now to
I
eat
like
all
it.
of the other cards. We saw this one kind of get shouted out in the community pretty
Yeah.
consistently over the last few days. And someone else, I saw, actually not someone, I saw several people talking about that they have a bias towards destroy the
Yeah.
devs. And honestly, I'm okay with it because it's a really great archetype to play. It's fun,
Yeah.
and the darker characters very often are the ones that the fans enjoy more often than not.
Mhm.
You know, they're
Well,
people like
and
villains for some weird reason.
and
You know, we
Venom's always been a huge, like,
even if he's
with,
not a villain, but you
again,
know what I mean.
well, he's an
He is and he
anti-hero,
isn't.
but at the same
Exactly.
time, he started as a villain. So
Right.
I think it's one of those things that Venom dropped in where a lot of us, and again, depends on age and things like that, but a lot of us growing up watching, your Saturday morning cartoons, Venom was the
Yes.
greatest villain in the animated Spider-Man series, and he's just kind of always been that big character there. And I think that the big thing with this change, which is good in my opinion, is back when he was a 3/1, the only time you ever ran Venom was a Venom specific deck, not a destroy deck, a Venom specific deck where you were eating a bunch of stuff and using Zola to copy him over, because the one
Right.
power didn't really incentivize you to say, I'm going to use Venom over Carnage. I'm going to use, because all you were doing is saying, hey, this lane has 30 power, it's going to have 31 power. Like, and what does
Yeah.
that do for you? It doesn't do much, unless you're doing that Zola play, or maybe that gave you just
Sabertooth.
enough to put like a death out or something.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely one of those things where I think this change was needed. It's only 2 extra power, but now if you think of things like Deathlock, like now you're like, maybe I play Venom over Deathlock because
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose everything like Deathlock does, right? And maybe this means we have to touch Deathlock at some point because now he falls out of favor and Venom is the new
Mhm.
card there. But yeah, I think it was needed 100%.
Yeah, I think so too, because the one power increase, like you said, when you clear out a lane, you're
Yeah,
specifically trying to eat cards that you're gonna get back. That was the whole purpose of Deathlock. You were playing him with your Deadpool decks, you were playing him with your
yeah,
Nova decks, you were playing him with your Sabretooth decks. Like that's what you
yeah,
were trying to do with Venom, and it was a very specific version of the archetype. Even with Nimrod, it works great. And it really just
yeah,
does reopen his usability in just general destroy rather than, like you said, Venom destroy, where a lot of destroy is just about put the squirrels on there and let them die. Now it's more about, okay, maybe there is a stronger strategy because that 3 power for 3 cost on turn 5 does make a huge difference as you're trying to get into your final move, whether it's a null
right.
play, whether it's a Zola play, etc. So I really do like this for Venom, and it's something I'm going to be testing out this weekend. Like I said,
Mhm.
I'm excited for it. I think it's just a simple little tweak to a very
Yeah,
popular character that increases its usability. And they went aggressive. They went with a 2 power
yeah.
increase. See, this is called a
I,
secondary segue now. Okay. I'm getting where you wanted to
well,
get to.
but here, one last thing here with Venom. I could
Sure.
see in a future OTA for him going down to a 3/2. So
Mhm.
again, I'm looking at the fact of, like, for instance, Venom eats a Nova. Now he's the same as a Deathlock. So maybe this is one more power than it should have been. But I'm
Mhm.
glad that they went ahead and did this, because I think if they went to a 3/2, I don't think many things change. I think going to
Right.
a 3/3, we'll see him pop out a little bit more, and then we can adjust from there. But yeah, I could see in a future OTA him being a 3/2 instead of a 3/3. So it's
Because
only other
one
thought
of
about Venom.
yeah, I mean, because what they're basically doing is they're trying to You know, when they do an aggressive increase, they are clearly trying to send the agenda to the community of, hey, don't forget about this card. It's
Yeah.
a really good, really powerful, really impactful card for what you want it to do. And you're right, where you have your Carnage, you're going to choose that first. You have your Deathlock. More often than not, you're going to choose that because that's a 3/5 versus a 3/1. Now at a
Yeah.
3/3, there is that, okay, this is competitive in choice now for this deck. So giving it the +2 power is going to put it on everybody's radar. It's going to make everyone
Yeah.
say, let me try out Venom now this week. And let's take a look at the numbers. Let's take a look at the stats. And the devs will say after a week or two, this was good or this was too good. And we also now know that if it is too impactful, they will rescind. And that's what they did with Enchantress. Enchantress, they went from the 4/4 up to the 4/6. And now this week, they've kind of leveled her out, which is what most people were thinking about, where now she's a 4/5. And they announced it 2 weeks ago that they want people to use her. They want people to be reminded that she exists. And we all know now she exists because it's a very relevant card again.
Yeah.
Where everyone's all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's how you undo that. Oh wow, 6 tats too. Oh, that's great. This does kill my Cerebro 6 deck, I will say. That does suck. But
Yeah.
you know, that's just because we've been having a lot of fun with Iron Lad, who we'll get to in a minute too. But I mean, we all saw this one coming though after the first week, right?
Yeah, she definitely started popping up in a lot of decks that I was going against. A lot of turn 6 plays, a lot of turn 5 plays. But yeah, she's 4/6 is good. Just like we talked about the other day when this happened, it put her on par with a White Queen. It put her on par with a Rock Slide. Again, maybe there's a little bit of an argument that they also did this to try to help Drax come up, but yeah, I don't think this kills the card whatsoever. I think it still is a very great and
don't
playable
try to pull
card.
that agenda shit, man. Hang on. No.
Come on, man.
They did not sacrifice Rock Slide and Enchantress for the greater good of Drax. They did
They
not.
want Drax the Destroyer
you dirty
to be
whore.
the Destroyer.
No,
and
that is a
played.
lie. No, don't even try. Look,
2 weeks from now,
I tinfoil hat some weird shit. No.
2 weeks from now, Drax is going to get a +3 power on reveal, and they're going to make the Destroyer because Dave Bautista's in the background, like somehow pushing the Drax card to be more playable. So, but no, I honestly, I think Enchantress is one of those where this makes sense. She needs to be a 4/5. I think a 4/6 and shutting down again one of the biggest playable decks of Darkhawk. Dino, Iron Man, Blue Marvel, right? There's all these huge cards where she just shuts them down. And once she shuts them down, they're useless cards. Like a 5/3 Blue Marvel that doesn't do anything is bad. An 5/0 Iron Man that does nothing is bad. So and the other side is I think they started to think about the fact that with High Evolutionary, you either play Luke Cage or you play Enchantress. Right. So and you probably play both. I think that they're understanding that this card was even going to get good in those because of the fact of how people were going to start to build those decks. So again, not saying they intentionally did that specifically for those decks coming out, but she would become a very high played card that she was. So it's good to see, like we saw before, it's good to see that they'll try something. They'll mess with an OTA. It was slightly too much from a 4/4 to a 4/6. They bumped it back just one, kind of like what I said they're going to do with Venom in a couple weeks. So, at least in my opinion, that's what they're going to do.
I think they will too. I think they will because they're going to see a crazy amount of destroy over the next week and a half because people love to play destroy decks if they can get the combo to pop off in the right order. So there are some really good ones out there, and I think Venom gets an increase. I think Enchantress's use probably remains the same, and it just kind of levels out just the numbers on the battlefield, not the numbers in usability. Her increase in usability is going to stay pretty high because we're not going to see a dip in Cerebro 6. that's not the impact right there. Because the key to Cerebro 6, 1000%
We
is
can't go to Ironlad yet. We can't go to Ironlad yet. We still have one more OTA.
This
The
is true. This is
locations,
true.
man.
This is, and you know what? I even have that here, and I didn't even like. I'm ready. Like it's on the screen.
I know
here,
you love
but,
your
like,
Ironlad. You love your
I
Ironlad.
love Ironlad, man. We'll get there.
We gotta take it back one more time because this is huge. We've got a change in OTA with the locations, and we have taken some of these really annoying locations and said, hey, they're going to show up less frequently. And you know, I'm sure there's a list out there somewhere of which ones are less frequent. We know things like Ego are very less frequent. So making Krakoa probably in the same area. Again, it doesn't tell us how less frequent, but probably putting Krakoa around the same time as Ego is going to be a big thing, you know.
There are 3 categories. If I remember correctly, there are 3 categories of appearance frequency. Common, rare, and super rare, or whatever the 3. I'm just going to make up those terms. But basically, these are taking down to that 1 notch. You know, the super rare, yes, that's your Ego and your world ship. That's its own category all by itself. Incredibly low appearance rate. And then there's 2 other major ones. So these are, to what my understanding of this is that these are all dropping down into from
do we
that
know,
common.
Do we know where they started though? Do we know that they were in the common? Right, but some of these may have already been in the second pool.
With a little bit of research, I wasn't ready for this question, okay? I wasn't ready for, can you tell me all the pools of the locations? No, I'm not ready for that yet, okay? We just talked about how coffee barely happened this morning. You think I've got location research for you? What am I, a professional? No.
Well, I was thinking Krakoa and Plunder Castle were probably already in that medium bucket anyway, because I don't see them often and they're pretty restrictive.
You don't see them
the
often?
Other ones?
You lucky fuck.
No.
Like,
I think I've seen Krakoa.
I feel like I know the community is with me on that one. I see Plunder Castle way too much. Maybe it's just that scarring, but I see it way too much.
I also don't play as much as most of y'all right now, but
this is true too. I play way too much.
Yeah, I play 30, 40 minutes a day. So
must be
I don't know. I mean, like Plunder Castle, I feel like I see once a week at most, maybe once 2 weeks. And then Krakoa, I think I saw it the first time yesterday, since it was like a highlighted location. So
that's
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it would be nice to know to be like, here's your list and here's exactly what's in each of these buckets.
Yeah.
But I was thinking there may be
the data miners are coming out slowly going, I have this for you. Like they
send it over.
I will find the information for you and I'll send it to you privately. But
anyway,
it's out there in the world. I just forget exactly what it is. But the bigger point is whether it was the big bucket to the middle bucket or the middle bucket now to the tiny bucket. Okay. They're all dropping down. For those who have not seen, the ones that are going to be less frequently seen than they are currently already programmed into the game are Attilan, Krakoa. Okay, I could do this. That one, Morag, Plunder Castle. Bless you. Sanctum Sanctorum and Subterranea. And the one, at least personally, that I think I'm just the most excited to see disappear from regular use is Plunder Castle. And Plunder Castle is just a location that never feels good because very rarely, except for the last 24 hours for me, which we'll get into at the end of the podcast, very rarely am I playing a deck that is reliant on a turn 6 card being able to survive at a 6 cost as my only play on turn 6. Very rarely.
This is where you should be running your Orca deck. Because when that was the highlighted location, that's what I was running, was an Orca deck.
Damn right. 100%.
And
it was great.
He was so good. But I agree with you. I think if you look at the list in general, there's 2 main things that this is hitting, right? And there's some outliers, but they're hitting the Darkhawk deck with Lechugagilla whatever you want to call it.
You can do it. See, you
And
did great the first time.
Subterranea. Yeah, and Subterranea. So those are the two decks where you're getting rocks into your deck, and they're trying to hit that because of
But
Darkhawk.
you
So,
got to add Attilan into that list because
yeah,
Attilan did the same thing because you went down to having a 3-card hand because everything else was put back into the deck. So that was a huge one for Darkhawk as well because you'd end up in an Attilan game. Like we said earlier, the base stats would have been a 4/6. If you get no extra things added, it's just standard play. You end up with 3 cards in your deck at the end of the game. With Attilan, it becomes 5 cards at the end of the game. So that base stat line for Darkhawk gets hit again. So this is, like you said, a back doorway that they are hitting the Darkhawk deck again. And I'm curious from this adjustment, come, a week from now, looking at the stats of the Darkhawk deck in this past week, and then the next week to see the impact of this 1 power of Rockslide and the decreased appearances of these locations, if those stats start to, drop down some of the strength of the Darkhawk deck. Because Darkhawk, at least to me, I feel like is becoming a secondary win condition now for a lot of these decks. It's no longer, the Coco 4 like crazy awesome Darkhawk, deck that it used to be. Very rarely are you seeing Darkhawk Mystique as the final this is why I'm here win condition deck. Now it's Darkhawk and Ronin or Devil Dino or Stature Black Bolt or like it's the
you have some moves within there and he's just a big card. He's just a big card in there. And the other category that I look at in these cards are just kind of the inhibitor locations. So you have cards like Morag where you're having to play 2 cards on a turn. So it's a location that's hard to get into. Plunder Castle, like you mentioned, it's a turn 6 is the only time you can play on this card, on this thing, unless you have Project Pegasus or something like that, right? Or like you'll talk about in a little bit. Or Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, the thing is, like, I get it with Sanctum Sanctorum. That's the one that kind of surprised me on this list. And I know I skipped over Krakoa, but everybody hates Krakoa. Everybody hates anything that plays your hand when you don't want it to.
Except Ego. We love Ego.
Yeah. There is another location I'll talk about in a minute that I'm surprised didn't show up on the list, but Sanctum Sanctorum is one of those where I never really fully minded it. Like I know it's hard to get into. You need cards like Jeff, or you need cards like, Nightcrawler or a move deck or whatever. But like, but it's one of those things where like I felt like it was okay. It really did change the game, and that's probably why it made the list, because now you're down to 2 locations in most games. But anyway, that one was fine. The one I was surprised, and I'm curious if there's any other location that you would have liked to see on this list. I know I'm also didn't ask you this beforehand, so.
But I'm ready for this answer already. I don't even know the rest of the question. Cool. I know the answer.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's anything specifically that you think should be on the list. Because I think it should have been District X.
Yes,
that's one of the most annoying ones in the game.
Yes. District X, Mindscape, Weird World. The 3 of those need to be touched this exact same way. Can you tell there's passion behind this one? Like that's why I said I'm ready for this one. I hate those locations with a passion for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm trying to play my deck. Mine, the way I want to play it. When it's Ego and it's 0.5% appearance rate or something crazy low like that, fine. When it's Worldship and the locations decide to Galactus you, that's fine. Krakoa, that's why we all hate Krakoa. Sucked. Absolutely sucked. But you take away my deck and you take it away from me as early as turn 1.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Like, it just sucks. It absolutely sucks. And yes, early morning, apparently I am way more vulgar because I'm way more passionate about this. Secondly, the reason is you're pushing conquest mode upcoming.
Yeah.
And these locations that control your deck and hand this aggressively or completely swap them out. Like, I mean, you were at the Creator Clash in New York. imagine going into round 6 in that tournament. You're in the semifinals, and boom, District X pops up on turn 1.
Yeah.
You just throw your hands in the air because you can't even sacrifice because you got two points that you're going to have to leave if you just don't want to deal with that crap. On ladder, at least you could say, have a cube, Merry Christmas, and then it's just a game to retreat. But
yeah,
those two locations suck.
It was like, what? I can't remember what location it was, but this past Wednesday during the Wednesday night snap, we were highlighting a game, and literally it was like every game he had the same location, every single round of the battle. I can't remember what the location was, but it was not good for his deck. And it was literally
Clintar.
happened.
Clintar showed up.
Yes.
Because he had Clintar in 3. I remember it exactly. He had Clintar 3 games in a row. And in the very first game, he didn't realize that ongoings did not get absorbed into the symbiote. So he played Darkhawk in the very first game. And then that turned into a 4-0 symbiote, not the 4-10 or 12 or whatever it was at that time.
Yeah.
And then the following 2 games sequentially, he got Clintar again and again. And we're like, hey, he learned it. Good job. Like, not making that mistake again. Like,
yeah,
it's true. Yeah. But Clintar's fine. There's no issue with Clintar, though. But these ones and those ones.
What I'm saying is, like, because we know that can happen, right? Yeah. And because it's just to your point, District X is on that list of, it shows up a lot. It shows up way more than you think it should ever show up. And then so imagine, to your point, not just getting hit on round 6, but potentially getting hit like 3 games in a row of like, nah, you don't get to play your deck. Sorry. I know you came to this tournament. I know you came to the conquest to win your game, but you don't get to play with it. So I would agree with that one. The other 2, I do not like them, but I think Mindscape does add a little bit of difference in the matchup because okay,
it's the least
6,
of the
I'm
3.
handing them these, but yeah, I mean, Weird World can be very annoying too when you're like, well, fine, now I get half their deck because you don't even get their full deck because they have stuff in their hand. So it's like you may not even get the good stuff in their hand, and they're getting all your good stuff that's still in your deck. So,
Weird World in particular is almost, for upcoming conquest mode and for the tournament scene, is worse because there are closed deck tournaments. And when you play and you get Weird World, say it happens in, round 1 or 2, you should not retreat. You should be playing that all the way through because you're going to learn half of the opponent's deck because of what they played on the battlefield, and the other half because you're going to get it in your hand. So it is such an impactful piece of information as a location. And then District X is just like a big lubed fist into the game.
Now you're saying it's a good location, though. You're saying Weird World's a good location for Conquest because you know what's in their deck. But then you're saying you don't want it.
But that's the thing, though. That's why it sucks, though. It's not a healthy location for that game mode. So I think that those 3 locations, Mindscape, least of the 3, I'd say probably Weird World second, District X first on my priority list of ones I'd like to see a lot less, both in ladder and specifically in upcoming conquest mode, because the fact that they weren't on here is a big surprise. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I am hopeful that conquest is slightly like not linked. I can't think of the word. It's too early right now, but I really hope that they've got it built to where they can take locations and say these will not show up in conquest. Because to your point, even things like ego or whatever, like I feel like there should be a list of locations that say in conquest specifically, because it's going to be the most competitive mode we have in the game, and every round is going to matter. I really hope that they do look at that and say, okay, I can go into this mode and say these 5 locations will never come up. Or they take things like District X and say District X now is going to be in the same category as ego for that mode. And then in normal mode, it's in the middle bucket, maybe. Again, right now it's in the wide open bucket. But I'm hoping that is in some way they can do that, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. So I mean, at least for me, if we get into conquest mode, I love that they've reduced these. But if there were 5 locations I needed to get rid of from conquest mode, District X, Weird World, Krakoa, Ego, and Plunder Castle. Those are the 5 I want to see removed from conquest mode because they are the most restrictive, in my opinion. I'd
I think
rather have
Plunder's
Sanctum
Castle's fine.
Sanctorum rather than Plunder Castle.
I think
Because
Plunder's
Sanctum's
Castle's fine. Just play Jeff. You're good.
does this, and that was what I was referring to earlier, and thank you for the segue. Does this adjustment nerf Jeff a tad?
A little bit. I mean, not necessarily, because you still have Jeff with Professor X, which is a lot of decks he's in, right? There's a Professor
Yeah.
X as well. I mean, it may be a little bit with Sanctum Sanctorum coming down, Morag, Plunder's Castle. But no, I still think there's a lot of locations that Jeff's going to be good in. And I think still having the ability to move and all of that still makes him a good card. Now, if he was like a 4 or 5 drop, then yes. But being a 2 drop, I still think he's very valuable, because even at even on turn 2 and you don't have a better play, playing him down is not terrible.
Yeah.
And then being able to move him later.
Still. Yeah.
So.
I agree with you there. I agree. I think it does hit him a tad, but not to a point where I wouldn't say spend 6,000 tokens. He's still worth 6,000 tokens. Just like Iron Lad, in my opinion. I think Iron Lad was 1,000% worth the 6,000 tokens. I'm very happy with my Iron Lad purchase. Just to kind of quickly touch on him, because there's a lot of conversation going out there about Iron Lad in a variety of different ways, positive and negative. The positive side of the conversation is that he is a fun, unique card by himself with this like kind of lockjaw-ish type mechanic, because you just don't know what you're going to get. And I was thinking about this of trying to how to explain to people Iron Lad gameplay for those who do not have him. And the closest thing that I could come up to with what's upcoming, especially knowing that Howard the Duck is coming next week, who's going to let you see what the top card of your deck is, okay? This is my comparison for Iron Lad when it comes to how it feels to play him versus not have him in the deck. You know when you go to like CVS and they sell the Russell Stover box of chocolates, like the Forrest Gump style box of chocolates, right? It's a variety of bonbons and there's a bunch of different flavors, right? There are different people who approach that box of chocolates differently. There are some people who will look at the box, they'll read the back of the box, they know it has all of these, and then when it comes time to eat the chocolates, they eat them at random, and they just like, ooh, oh, this one was this flavor. Oh, this one was this, and they enjoy that experience because they don't know what's going to happen. You know, you never know what you're going to get. But then there's this whole other community that remembers, if you look inside the lid, there's a guide that tells you this is this flavor, this is this flavor. So you have two different approaches to how you can enjoy your box of chocolates. Those who like to look at the label and say, this is this is that, this is what I want, those are going to be the Howard the Duck players. And those who say the variety is the spice of life, those are the people that are going to say, I like Iron Lad as a plug and play card into the deck, because you see him going into decks like that. I said this on stream, and I think I said this on Wednesday during Wednesday Night Snap as well. When you build an Iron Lad deck without Howard the Duck, you need to have at least 9 of the other 11 cards have synergies that could be picked up by Iron Lad at any given point and be profitable for your deck. And it's a different type of construction. You know, it's a you're just going for random.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think he's like a Lockjaw deck. Lockjaw is very similar in the fact that when you build a deck, you know that there's only 1 or 2 bad cards, right? There's only 1 Wasp and 1 other 1 drop, right? A Sunspot or whatever that you can throw into Lockjaw and not hit, right? Because most Lockjaw decks, and I'm not talking about the Thanos decks where you have all the gems and stuff. I'm talking about back in the day, Lockjaw was, you know, Wasp,
true Jane Jaw,
Sunspot, Lockjaw, and then everything beyond that was like 5 and 6 drops. And so no matter what you threw in there, you knew you were coming back with a big card. And I think that this is kind of how Iron Lad works, is there's maybe 1 or 2 cards in there that you don't necessarily want to hit. Maybe you have a Nebula or something like that. Not saying that's a bad hit, but just saying those are your quote unquote worst hits. Whereas, you know, most of your good hits are going to be huge things. You're going to hit an Iron Man. You're going to hit, you know, a Dr. Doom or whatever it may be. And then just all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is crazy. But yeah, he's he's been good, and he's been showing up in a lot of decks as just a random card because I know you keep saying the words. His stat line, he's a 4/6. Even if he hits a bad hit, he's a 4/6. You can hit a Nightcrawler, and now you have a 4/6 that can move around, right? It's not as quite of a vision, but he's also a 4-drop. So like, yeah, it's so good at what he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a little worried though. I think an OTA is going to take him to a 4/5. Not now.
You're just
because
scarred.
they need you to spend your tokens. No. I honestly think like right now I think 4/6 is a little too good for what he does, because now you're saying I get a 4/6 with really good text on the card. And if you think about any other 4-drop, there's like everybody else is not that high of a power, if that makes sense. Think of all your other 4s like we looked at earlier. Most of your 4s that are 4/6 don't have crazy text on the card. And in the general of the fact that Iron Lad could be lots of other things, I think he'll go to a 4/5, but I think it'll be like 3 weeks from now. They can't hit him now because too many people are spending tokens, too many things.
Bingo.
But 3-4 weeks from now, Iron Lad will get some type of tweak, and I think that's probably the thing I would see is a 4/5. I could even see a 4/4, and he's still going to be good. Here's the thing, and I'm curious on your thought, as you've played a lot more than I have with him, but I have played with him a lot. I even think at a 4/4, he's still a great card. 4/6 though, I mean, he's incredible right now.
He's incredible in this sense, and he's only going to get better next week. But for the exact reason you made your own counterpoint and didn't even realize it, which is the fact that if they were to touch him in the future, they're not going to do it in the month he releases, nor are they going to do it in the month afterwards. Maybe in the month after that, because we have proof of this. We have proof that if they're going to touch a card that is new as a Series 5 drop, not a season pass, as a Series 5 drop, they're going to wait until it's like halfway through its Series 4 dropped already progression. Look at what happened to Shuri. People are invested, and especially right now, because it's a hot card, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's, there's a lot of people investing a lot of tokens that they've been saving up for, because we as a community have been saying, save for May, save for May, save for May. And now, boom, here we are. People are spending their tokens now. They're not going to touch this card for a while because of that reason, because they need to show that your investment had value in it. Because if you would see a community absolutely go bonkers, flipping out, pitchforks, the whole routine, if they touch this card anytime in the next 2 months. Legitimately. They won't. It's the first one of this month, so you get the whole month at that value. Then it goes to Series 5, and then the month after that, it finally drops. Like, this is the longest, one of the best values of your 6K tokens is always the one that you get in the very first week of the month, because you have the most time at that value. However, if they do just it, I don't think they change it from a 4/6 to a 4/5 or even to a 4/4. I think it becomes a 3/3. But that's a conversation 2 months from now. Yeah, think about it though. Think about it though. Think about it though. For all of the reasons, we'll come back to that in 2 months. I'm gonna leave it as a cliffhanger like there. I'm not letting you go further on that. That's called a mic drop moment. I am directing this podcast now. Good sir, stop it.
I got you. So, I agree with you on the fact that he won't get touched for a while. I think the other side of it is this may be their first card potentially that the Snap guy, data guys get to see, where there's a big purchase ratio.
Jeff was pretty big. Game.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, when you look at Jeff, you look at Iron Lad, like these cards that are coming out right now, right, this month, they're probably going to have the best data that they have on cards within that first week or two of them. If you look back in the last season and season before, yes, Jeff got purchased a lot. So that's probably another card that they have a lot of data on. But I do feel like when you look at these kind of cards with Shuri as an example, right? When Shuri first dropped, a lot of people didn't get Shuri. Shuri really didn't make a spike until a month in or a month, 2 months in, when people found the Shuri deck and people are like, okay, this is the card I want to invest in. Whereas
Yep.
things like Jeff, things like Iron Lad, and what we'll see, I mean, Howard the Duck may be one of those that doesn't get as many purchases. We'll have to see because he does work so well with Iron Lad. But when you look at the cards that are coming out this month and the fact that last month had so many duds, I mean, you had, again, Snow Guard,
Yeah.
Dagron, like, and I'm
Can we,
and again,
talk
I'm
about
not
that for a
saying
half a
those
second here
cards-
too, just like as a good segue? Because like, can we acknowledge the fact that the Animals Assemble month was not an Animals Assemble month? The Animals Assemble
Yeah.
month was the look how cute Jeff is. Ignore the lizard. Like,
Yeah.
like that's what
Yeah.
the whole, even the promo for it was Ryan Gonzalez. Look how cute Goose is. This is so cute. This is so cute. Scary ass, boring lizard. Like, that was just, it was such a disjointed.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Snow Guard, but like it was just such a disjointed.
I mean, she's a bear and a hawk, but yeah. And I think that
it's
was
a bear, it's a hawk, it's still in my store. That's how you look at Snow Guard.
It's one of those things where we just had a lot of cards that, one, again, I don't think they're terrible. That's kind of going back to all that. Like, I think the problem is there's so many cards that you look at for this month where you're like, man, that's good, right? So there's a difference in like, I don't know where to put this card and this one's good. So I do think at some point, especially with Conquest and things like that, maybe Snow Guard gets a little bit better in that particular thing when you can control locations. We have already seen things like Scarlet Witch was a bad card back in the day. And now Scarlet Witch is showing up in a lot of tournament decks because now you can say, oh, you like that location? You don't get that location. So I definitely think that there's going to be eventually some of that. But yeah, I think the difference in last month is so many people saved their tokens that, and I did the same thing. I have like 30,000 tokens at this point. So I'm getting every card this month, but it's because I literally just bought Jeff last month and that was it. So like, it'll be interesting to see the data that comes out because of the fact that so many people skipped last month and they're picking up Iron Lads. So they probably have great data. I've seen, I haven't seen a ton of Iron Lads, but I've definitely seen way more Iron Lads than I have of any of the new cards last month outside of Jeff. It's all a lot of Jeffs, but and I expect to see the same thing for the rest of the month. So, you mentioned we've got Howard the Duck coming, we've got High Evolutionary coming, you've got Living Tribunal. Again, he's probably at the lowest one, and if I don't get a card, he's gonna be the one I don't get because we had Spider-Man, the Spider-Man coming out after that, and some of those look
I gotta say,
pretty good.
To end the April conversation too, Snow Guard was such a failure that up until last week, Snap.fan didn't have enough games in total usage to even have statistics.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi's the number one played card in the game right now and has over 38,000 appearances in stats. Like a crazy amount of games. Sorry, not 38,000, 380,000 games played. You know how many games in stats there are for Snow Guard currently on the site? Less than 900.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that should show you the amount of usage of how big of a failure Snow Guard was.
And that was people getting it off of locations into their hand.
Yeah, they're getting out of Agent 13. They're getting it out of like random things, district decks, the hub, exactly. And Super Tech God. So put that all together, and Kawa. Like, I think that was an eggs. I think those are the only big three that really like actually got them and played them for 24 hours, and then also regret every moment of it.
Can I have my money back?
Oh yeah.
Can I have my money back, please?
But no refunds.
So no, sorry. Iron Lad, though, different conversation piece. He is a really good, fun card. To the credit of other commentary on him, at the moment, I don't think he makes any deck dramatically better. I don't think he's adding 5% plus to any specific deck, changing the win condition. However, the knowledge and element of acceleration, kind of like a ramp effect with him, is very good. So I'm on that train. That at the moment he makes a great, fun, unique, random element like a Lockjaw deck does, where it can absolutely screw you and it can absolutely, turn back the other way. But I think it's good. I think overall, I'm happy with my 6,000 token purchase. I still, hindsight will be 2020 later on, if that is the case, if he's going to be a better purchase in High Evolutionary, but we'll find out.
Yeah, and so I know you've got a deck that you're showing, and I was surprised your deck doesn't have Iron Lad in it. With as many Iron Lad decks as you've been playing.
Yes. So I discovered this deck within the last 24 hours, and I sent it to you. I started posting it up on Twitter. It was posted up on YouTube by another content creator named Freddie Babes, who, I'll be straight out honest, I did not know prior to this deck, and I will probably get to know a lot more relatively soon. Because I am playing his ramp deck with a lot of success. My opening bit with this deck was 14-0. And I posted the screenshot of the stats of it on Twitter. It's a ramp deck featuring Nebula, Ebony Maw, Armor, Electro, Wave, Iron Man, Blue Marvel, Doctor Doom, Onslaught, Odin, Ultron, America Chavez. And it is such a clean and easy ramp deck to run. There's a couple of things to know about it that I want to showcase. Number one, if you don't have Wave or Electro down by turn 3, your only other condition to stay in the game is to have Nebula, Ebony Maw, and Armor down on one lane. If you have that, those are one of the three things you need to know if you need to retreat by turn 3 is either Wave or Electro or Nebula plus Ebony Maw plus Armor. If you have any of those three, you're going to be able to take this probably all the way through to turn 6. And I went 14-0 with that strategy. This is not a Wave on 5 deck. This is a Wave on 3 because every other card in the deck is a 5 or a 6 drop. Again, Iron Man, Blue Marvel, Doctor Doom, Onslaught, Odin, Ultron, right? America Chavez is in there to thin it. So you're really going to be focused on getting those 6 drops out early, getting the 5 drops of either Iron Man or Blue Marvel on turn 4. If it's Electro, for example, is still consistent and strong. I went 6 ranks in 25 games, 60 cubes. Like, it was absolutely bananas. And I loved the deck. The card I played probably the least was Ultron, but the reason is because more often than not, Doom was my better option. Ultron did win me some games though, but like, this is a deck I would consider heavily for maybe after trying it a little bit more. I want to see if this also takes me from now 85 to 95. I want to see if this deck does that too. If not, I might try Iron Lad in this deck because of all of these positive effects, but I'm a little worried on a couple of them. I would take out Ultron for him. But
you got a couple bad hits in there with Iron Lad, but I would agree. There's a couple cards.
There's some really like, there's so many good 3-card combos built into this deck for turns 4, 5, and 6 that I was coasting with it, and I think it's worth bringing up here. So now I've talked out 2 other decks from some other creators that are like myself, smaller creators that have shown great success that we need to promote and put out there into the environment, because if there's anything we've learned this past week is that the top needs to change, and that we need to get some of these smaller creators like us even built up differently in this community to rise up with the likes of some of the other major bigger creators up here, because there are some great content creators that make some great decks that have some great positive attitudes that are really trying to make an impact in Marvel Snap, and YouTube algorithms can only do so much. So I want to talk up this deck because it was solid. Absolutely solid.
Yeah. And I used it for a little bit too. I went from 86 to 89 with it. So it could definitely win a lot of games and steal some stuff. I think partially it steals games because people aren't expecting it. When you throw out your Electro on 3, they're expecting Galactus, things like that. Because again, the ramp decks have kind of fallen off. But I would agree with you. I think Ultron's probably one of the weaker cards. If you take out Ultron, you also have the ability to take out Blue Marvel. I think Blue Marvel's still good, so I'm not saying he's definitely a takeout, but there's cards like White Tiger
that was the combo that won me Ultron games, was Blue Marvel plus Ultron. As a like 5-6 play after playing out like either Onslaught or Iron Man on turn 4. Like, it's really fun, I'm not gonna lie. really, really fun. But
Yeah, absolutely.
just before we wrap up here, I'm going to give you the floor for a half a second to talk about what's happening tomorrow with the Snap.fan Open, because we are going to be broadcasting this on the Snap.fan Twitch channel.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we've got which we talked about a little bit earlier on Wednesdays. We got the Wednesday night Snap, but each month we have a big, huge open, and this Saturday is the Snap.fan Open. So make sure, if you haven't looked at it, signed up, whatever, you go check that out, because there's $600 that are going to top 8. So big prizes going out to top 8. It is a longer tournament, so be prepared. It starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. That is when the rounds start. So you want to make sure you're signed up, you're checked in. You're going to be able to check in an hour before that 12 o'clock. We will start the stream at 11. So if you want to come hang out with us during it, whether you're playing or anything like that, over on twitch.tv/snap.fan, all spelt out. So DOT in the middle of that. But yeah, we've got awesome casters that can be hanging out with us. Guest is going to be there for a couple rounds. We've got Matrim, we've got Boulevard, Niles going to be in there, Offbeat. Yeah, just a lot of awesome
Pulse Glazers in
people.
there too. Yeah, a bunch of us.
Yeah, Pulse Glazer. I'll be kind of on the front end and the back end, but I'll be everywhere behind the scenes, making it run and doing all that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Last time we had almost 300 people show up. So we had like 500 people sign up, which is awesome. We were very close, and they were like 286 actually ended up playing. So it is 8 rounds of Swiss. So be prepared. Whether you win or lose, you get to play 8 rounds. And then the cut to top 8. And then from there, top 8, we go into, the finals there. So it did run from about 12 p.m. Eastern to about 9 p.m. Eastern. So just keep that in mind. If you know you're going to win, which you should all believe in yourself that you're going to win, block out that time on the calendar, come hang out. But worst case, it's just a lot of fun. We will be showing the games live on Twitch, so you can come do that. There is a delay on the game. So there's a 3-minute delay on the game being on screen. So please feel free. Let us know if you're playing, you want to share your screen, because we want to comment on games. But we are live. Casters are live. So we are able to actually interact with the chat with the delay on the game. So also come in, talk to us in the chat. Let us know what you think the plays should be. Tell us what cards or what plays are interesting that are going on in the game, because we are live with you guys to talk, which I think is kind of one of the only tournaments that's able to do that right now. So super excited about that, and being able to do that after we figured out how to do it. So a lot of fun.
You've put a lot of work into making that happen. So thank you so much for doing that, Mr. DefaultDan. I will be casting on there as well. I'll be doing 2 different blocks back to back from 12 to 4. So I'm excited to be a part of this once again. And I got to say, it is a lot of fun in the chat, especially now that we can comment live on it together with you while the stream has a delay. So I invite you guys to come be a part of that. Come hang out with us on Saturday all day at any point, whether he's commenting, whether I'm commenting, whether it's Matt, whether it's Pulse, Offbeat, Boulevard, all of us, Niles, we're all in there. We're all having a good time. And we invite you to do that, just like you hang out with here or here with us. It's all folks
on here.
Or on here, hanging out, they're with us.
Around here.
Hanging out around here with us on the Snapback podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time it is for you. Once again, that's DefaultDan. My name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. Find us both on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Discord, all of the places. We appreciate you hanging out with us this afternoon. Please enjoy the rest of your day.
And we'll see you here next time.
Ooh.
Better?
See you here next. I like that one. See you here next time. It's better than catch you later, which I'll see you later. I'll never let you live that one down.
It'll always be there. It'll always be there.
It's out in the interwebs.